Hello, everybody. Hi, everyone. It's 4 o'clock. I will give you all a moment to come in because I don't actually know how long it takes for this to start broadcasting on various platforms. And I would hate to start talking just into the ether for nobody. But hi, it's really good to have my very first LinkedIn Live. And um, welcome. As you know, I'm Julia Poger. I'm a business, conference, and diplomatic interpreter, and I work from French and Russian into English and back from English into Russian. And as you most probably know, if you're here, I also run a business called Know Your Worth. And Know Your Worth is something to help people, and in particular interpreters, but frankly, quite frankly, anybody in the services industry, but to help you get your name out, to sell your services, to understand marketing and negotiating so that you are able to get the work that you want at the fees you want and with the conditions you want. And once again, welcome to my very first LinkedIn Live, which is pretty kind of exciting. So I would love to see where anybody is from. So where are you guys all from? You can put it in the comments, and whatever platform you're on, I will get the comments right here. So I'd love to see how far away some of you are, since interpreters are from all over the world. And I did put this at a time when you should be able to make it, I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I do realize it's a little bit late for China and a little bit early for the West Coast of the United States. But by the same token, you'll be able to watch this on a recording if you need to afterwards, so that's fine. So first of all, my LinkedIn Live shows will be 30 minutes. They will be an Ask Me Anything format, or an Ask Me Almost Anything, having to do with marketing, negotiating, getting your name out, and selling. But at the same time, there could be some questions about interpreting as well. Now, before I begin, I would like to actually let you know that I took a LinkedIn Live course from Kirsty Ames and Pete Ames, and it's called How to Launch Your First LinkedIn Live Show, which is why I am actually here and able to do this. And I would like to thank them for all of their help and their support. Their support has been pretty fantastic. In fact, Kirsty is definitely here right now. We are live, and she's in England, which is pretty cool. And we've got from Brussels, which I'm very glad to hear about because here I am. And we've got from Egypt, gosh, welcome, and Italy, and Munich, and Spain, and oh my gosh, okay, I don't think I have room to put absolutely everybody on. I'm sorry about that. But there you go. Welcome again. So the LinkedIn Lives are pretty much going to be Ask Me Anything shows once a month. We're going to possibly have some guests on in the future who can help you to learn to run your business more simply as well. And to go back to Kirsty and Pete, I'd like to say that it's fantastic that they have been able to do this. And Pete, in fact, is going to kick us all off with the very first question, which isn't quite about marketing and negotiating, but it is a bit about interpreting. And his question was, did you get voice training? I have a feeling that's because of the cadence that I speak with and the emphasis and the emotion and so on. So I thought I would just give you a quick few minutes on what interpreters have to do to become interpreters. So yes, Pete, we did actually have some voice training in my interpreting school. Very little, but just enough. And then I've attended some voice training classes ever since, some of which were aimed directly at interpreters. But I think that the thing that has helped me the most is that this is partly my conversational style. And when I was able to hear other interpreters, more experienced interpreters, who spoke with the same style and did it in the booth, I was able to model myself more on them. And as I modeled myself more on them, I did it even more. And I learned what would help my audience have more understanding by being able to emphasize the strong points and let the less strong points kind of fall to the wayside, and do that all with tone of voice. Moreover, sometimes tone of voice can get through a lot more than having um, all of the various words that you could choose or you could use. So in this particular instance, I am using my voice tone even more because I have a mic on. And I found, as has my other half, who is also an interpreter, and those of you who know him know this very well, when he doesn't have a mic in front of him, he is incomprehensible. When I don't have a mic in front of me, I don't quite speak with the same emphasis. But as soon as the mic is on, I'm working. And so therefore, and since I've been working for over 30 years now, therefore, I speak with more of the emphasis and the cadence. So thanks for the question. I'm really glad to know that it was something that interested you, and I can point you in the direction of a couple of voice trainers if you ever need one. So that was question number 1. Now we got a second question, which is a bit more of a doozy. It was from somebody on LinkedIn who asked me how he can get his name out and sell his services as an interpreter and a translator, because this is something of a headache for him. And it's quite frankly, a headache for a lot of us. Now, I do need to let you know that I don't have a degree in marketing or a degree in negotiating. I did not get a business degree. What I did do was I've been working since I was 12. I used to sell newspaper advertising for my mother's newspaper. In the US, we could work as of 12 years old if you're working for your parents. And when I was 16, I started selling books and then shoes and all sorts of other things. And as my mother said, I could sell ice to an Eskimo. So somehow it developed. And I think that all of us have this talent, but we kind of tamp down on it. I didn't tamp down. I had to use it in my work. So when I became an interpreter, it became fairly natural to know, kind of in the back of my mind subconsciously, what I needed to do. It took me several years to work out exactly what I was doing so that I could help you and so that you could figure it out as well. So that's my background. I need to tell you that none of the things that I'm going to tell you on this Ask Me Anything or any other of the Ask Me Anythings or any other courses that I teach, none of it is new. None of it is made up by me, other than I aggregate information across the entire market for marketing, negotiating, and so on, and have found a way to apply it for interpreters. For interpreters and anybody else in a niche service area. And yes, I do pronounce niche a la Americaine and not a la snooty Brit niche, but just so you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what I would suggest that you do is you need to go down through several steps. And the very first step that you have to go through is knowing your client. You have to understand very well who your client is to be able to get your name out to that client. Okay? Now, if you're just selling to absolutely everybody, if you're just selling to absolutely everybody, then you're not selling to anybody, because what happens? I mean, if you were to look out there and see, say, a computer being advertised and it says, I can do everything, that's not really going to help you. If you're an avid gamer and the computer says, we have the graphics cards for games or whatever, you're going to look at that computer and you're going to start comparing other computers to that computer. And that computer will become your benchmark. So if you just say, I'm the interpreter for anybody, oh, whatever you have to do, business and legal and this and that, and anything you want to do, or translating or whatever you're doing, you are not going to work for anybody because nobody's going to use you as the benchmark. If you choose a niche, if you choose a very specific customer niche, then you can focus all of your advertising on that niche. And all of your efforts will be so much more streamlined because you'll know who you're talking to. You'll know what their problems are because you will have researched and studied it. You can't just go out there and market and say, hey, look at me, I'm an interpreter, I'm a translator, and expect people to care. They don't care about you at all. What they care about is themselves. What's in it for me? And if you can't tell them how you can help them solve a very specific problem, they're not going to bother listening to you. And quite frankly, getting the message across in another language is not the problem that you are solving. Okay? You have to dig a lot deeper than that. But for each niche, it will be different. Okay? So, for example, I know somebody who had interpreters for a keynote speech in their very highly specialized and highly net worth business. And they paid the interpreters extra for the recording because we do that. And that way they could keep that recording as a high prestige product that they could then offer to any of the people who bought their services, or they could use in their marketing or whatever. So for them, the point was to offer them something that would be a smooth and wonderful product that they could then pass on to their own clients. Somebody else, let's say a multinational gardening firm, might have different problems. Things like, how do I approach somebody in another climate zone? I don't know. I'm making this up as we're talking. This is LinkedIn Live after all. Let's say another one might have a problem. So for example, let's say somebody is teaching a negotiating class and they suggest that you want to get people to say no a lot. But no in a way that allows you to move forward. I'm not bothering you, am I? No. Great, that means I can continue. The problem is, in some languages, nobody ever says no. They might say, you're not bothering me, or they might say, go on, or they might avoid the question altogether, in which case you really are bothering them, but they're never going to say yes or no. So you need to have a different approach. So therefore, you might want to focus on the niche of people who are training others in negotiating and offer them your services if they wanted to train negotiators in the country that speaks your language. So it makes things so much easier. So once you've figured out your niche, you'll understand exactly what it is that are the problems that you're solving. The niche that I have here is interpreters and how to teach interpreters how to sell and how to negotiate. But quite frankly, anything that I'm saying now is of value to anybody who's in the services industry, as I know from having given some of these classes to people who are not at all interpreters, but who have been private bankers, who have been MCs at big public events, who have been, videographers and so on. So all of these people have benefited from the same answer because all of them have the same issues. So that's the first step. Once you figure out who your client is, you can then move to that space where they are and write things or connect with them in such a way that will allow them to see that you are solving their problem. Then it becomes less of a headache. There's a whole process behind it. obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any classes at all to give. But there you go. And that's the beginning of the answer to your question. Please let me know if you have any other follow-through questions on that one. So that was that question. And let me just see. I have another question here, which is from somebody else on LinkedIn, and in fact, somebody who's taken my social media course. How do I convert interest in my social media posts into clients? And what she said was that she's seeing more and more interest in her posts. She's getting likes, she's getting comments, she's getting a lot of engagement, but then it's not necessarily turning into work. So first of all, you need to understand that on social media, engagement is social proof that people know of you and that people listen to you. I saw your latest post, in fact, and it was an excellent post. It was one that has been shared around, all about lead nurturing. And this was fantastic because it was aimed at interpreters who don't know what lead nurturing is, which is fantastic. But are the interpreters actually your clients? Are they the ones that you want to be marketing to? If they are not, then you need to move your post to answer the questions that your clients would have, as opposed to the broader interpreting community. Now, let me just say that we do have three kinds of different clients, right? We have our colleagues who are definitely our clients as well because they hire us to fill out a team. And they're the easiest because they know what you do, because they do it too. And so it's perfectly legitimate to write for your colleagues. In fact, it's a really good sales technique. Another group of clients for us is agencies. Now, agencies think they understand what we do. And in some cases, they really do, because those groupings might be run by an interpreter. And those are the best agencies to work for in the sense that they do know what you do and they will understand about what kind of conditions and fees you need. The agencies that are not run by interpreters or by people who understand interpreters, they need a different approach. They need an approach where you stand up for yourself in a professional way and where you explain what it is you do and why the fee that they are offering or why the conditions that they are offering are not appropriate. A third group of clients, again, as I said before, are direct clients. And those direct clients really need to be niched down. So you need to find some way of figuring out what the problem is for those people. So that's the beginning step. Once you've figured out who those clients are, what you need to do on social media is start liking their posts and commenting on their posts. Okay, so you're not simply liking and commenting on your colleagues' posts if you're aiming for direct clients. You're liking and commenting on posts for your direct clients, for future direct clients, actually. And once you've liked and commented on several of their posts, and only like and comment on the ones that you actually have real comments for and that you actually really believe. You can't just like everything indiscriminately because they'll figure that out and they'll know that you're just after their money. But if you like it and you have a thoughtful comment, not just, ooh, great post, but why was it a great post? Ah, you reminded me of something that I had not remembered. Or it's interesting to hear that you have this same problem that I have, even though you're not in the same industry. I wonder if this might help you the way it helped me. So you've had all of those comments and you've done it several times. Then you would write a direct message to them in LinkedIn. First, you might connect with them if you aren't already connected, and you would say, I've liked and commented on your posts. I would like to get you more regularly in my feed, and I'd love to share my network with you. And then they'll connect. And then you might direct message them about something that you've written that might be of interest to them. You do not sell. Selling comes much later. It comes when they express a problem that you can certainly resolve for them. And then you might DM them with some kind of a solution. It's a long-term thing, but marketing is not a flash in the pan. Okay. So I see that we have another couple of questions. So this is one of those, and thank you, Ivan, for the question. This is one of those questions that kind of falls in the almost anything, outside the almost anything. I don't know the answer to this, but if you take a look in the comments below the event, I think I answered that there were 2 or 3 people that you could turn to who are all on LinkedIn and who might know that answer. So if you go back to the comments under the event announcement, you'll find one of those comments is replying to this question there. And I left 3 names for you to turn to. So I hope that helps. Now let's see. Here we have, how do you approach a situation where large company clients prefer working with interpreting and translation agencies rather than negotiate and hire individual interpreters? That's a really good question, and it's one that I've dealt with throughout my career. Now, just so you know, the first half of my career, in fact, just a little less than half nowadays, now that I think about it, anyway, was on the East Coast of the United States. I lived in Washington, D.C. And then I moved to Belgium for love, as some of you might know. But when I did that, when I lived in the US, my business name was Julia Poger Associates. Now, Jindra, you would be my associate for this coming up job because they have your language. Next time, it might be somebody else who would be my associate for another job because they would have the language that I need. So there's nobody to say that I'm not a company, but there's also nobody to pin me down as to who I'm working with. So you could become a consultant interpreter, and without being a full-blown corporation, you could hire interpreters and offer your services to be the person, the intermediary, basically, and you would be the client for several other interpreters, as you can see. So that's one of the ways that I deal with it. Another way might also be to actually bite the bullet and incorporate yourself. And you could incorporate yourself, assuming that you fulfill all of the legal requirements in your country. You could incorporate yourself and then become that company if you needed to. There are tax positives and negatives for both of that, but for both of those approaches. I preferred the more freewheeling one that doesn't require me to be a corporation, but I don't know what works best for you where you are. A third thing that you could do is make a temporary group of interpreters that would be able to answer that particular bid, for example. And then you all get together for that thing. You give yourselves a name. You set up a central contact number or email or whatever, and you work, all of you, you figure out how you're going to deal with it and who's the main contact point and what bank account you'll use and so on. And you just do it as a freewheeling thing. So there's 3 different ways of dealing with things. A fourth could be that you see this particular offer and you go to a consultant interpreter or to a consortium of interpreters and say, I've seen this, I would like to work on this, but I'm not the business. Would it be possible to work with you on this business? And I'll get you the details later. Okay, so those are 4 different approaches that you could take. And I hope that helps. I've got one more question I can take. And I think I'm going to go with a non-interpreter who, in fact, Kirsty, who came to one of my Know Your Worth tasters. And I used her as an example. And at one point, somebody asked, but how do I talk to the clients? because it's different than when you talk to another interpreter, like those approaches that I suggested when when I was talking earlier about how you approach colleagues versus how you would approach agencies and how you would approach direct clients. So if you're talking to a direct client, they have no idea what an A language is. And if you notice, when I introduced myself, I said I work from French and Russian into English and from English back into Russian. That is so that anybody out there can understand exactly what kind of work I do. And what you need to do is figure out how your client thinks. So you don't want to use all of your jargon. You don't want to say, oh, I do whispering, I do consec, I do simul, we need the booze, we need the equipment, we need whatever. They have no idea what any of that means. And what you need to do is take them through step by step. So I used Kirsty as an example, and she was a pretty excellent example, as I would expect from Kirsty, because she's pretty excellent at everything she does. And what I did was I turned to her and I said, Kirsty, would you like simultaneous or consecutive interpreting for this meeting? And she's like, huh? And then I said, okay, now let me rephrase it. Kirsty, would you like to save time or money? And she said, oh, time. And I said, great. Let's go for simultaneous interpreting. When we speak at the same time that you do, it will cost a bit more than the other way. And she understood immediately. And it blew her mind, as she says here, which thank you very much for having said that. So I think I've gotten to the end of what I can do during this particular AMA. I'd like to just let you know that our next AMA will be next month, next November 5th at 4 p.m. on CET. So that's a Saturday, again, just like today. And I will keep any of the questions that I haven't answered yet from the chat here. But if anybody else wants to come or send me questions in between, send me, DM me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or just write to me by email, then you're more than welcome to do so. And now I would like to just wrap up with a top tip for you. One single tip that will help you in all your marketing. It will help you simplify everything. And that is know your client. Now, know your client is what I meant when I answered questions 2 and 3, and possibly even 4 during this AMA. Know your client means targeting somebody, not just saying, oh, I work for anybody, but specifically targeting a specific niche. As we've said before, colleagues, agencies, direct clients, all of them are fair game, but you really need to know whom you are targeting and what they are going to want from you, okay? I've written something about this. I've written a document. It's called the Ideal Client Avatar, and it's a workbook for you. And if you're interested in getting it, it's free. Just put a 3 in the comments and I'll be happy to get it to you on LinkedIn. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, just after the 3, maybe put in, if you're on Twitter, then say Twitter and put in your handle, whatever, so that I can find you and I will get it to you. And that way you can use this document as well. Now, it has been out there for about a year or so, and I know that a lot of you already have it. I'd like to know why so many of you are not yet using it, okay? Know your client is the one thing that I can help you with that will help you to really focus your efforts so that you're not spending all of your efforts a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, and you're really putting it all into one. Remember, you'll go much farther and much faster if you move in a focused way. So that's my top tip. Do remember that this will be up on my AMA playlist on YouTube for the Know Your Worth channel. I'll put that link in the comments below, below the event notification in LinkedIn. And I'll have it in the description of the YouTube as well. what can I say? It's a little bit like telling somebody to come back here when you're here, but at least it'll be there so you can share it with other people if you want to. So the YouTube list will be in the comments, and I think that we have hit our 30-minute mark. So thank you very much for having come to my first LinkedIn Live. I'm really happy that you are all able to come. And really, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your comments. And thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next month.